Hello, friends. I just want to talk to you for a couple of moments concerning the size of your life. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, something defines you. It kind of becomes boundaries around you. It's based on what you're believing for, what you're living in. I mean, your lifestyle actually says something about you. The way you carry yourself, the way you walk, what you wear, your vocabulary, your conversation, every bit of that identifies you. It says something concerning you. I really believe that, of course, that's the reason why I come to you and talk to you concerning a successful life, is the fact that if you will make room for instructions, the wisdom, that actually becomes building blocks for a successful life. But I have to come to that point to ask you this. What is the size of your life? What is it that holds you within the boundaries of a certain way of living? It's kind of like the watermark for your life. And all of a sudden, it's like gravity, because every time you try to get away from it, it pulls you right back into that spot. You know, I'm reminded of a story by the name of a man by the name of Jabez. I know that every one of you have heard that. The prayer of Jabez is a very popular prayer. This was from First Chronicles, and this is what Jabez prayed, because Jabez had a pretty rough life. He had a life where he had a lot of opposition. His mother called him Jabez, which means sorrow bringer or pain maker. I'd ask myself, why would someone do that? Why would you name your son pain maker or sorrow bringer? Well, most people, they do that out of their own pain. You know, it's whenever someone is going through something. Can I just tell you something? People don't do things to you. They do them for themselves. And many times the things that you're feeling from someone else is because of the pain that they're going through, the emptiness, the disappointment. You know, I remember reading the story concerning Jacob and Rebekah. They were on their way to Jerusalem, and the Bible said that Benjamin was being born. She was pregnant, and in childbirth, she died. It was a horrible situation. But in her dying breath, she called him Benoni, which meant the son of my sorrow. Think about that for just a moment. She labeled the boy out of her pain. Of course, Jacob stepped up and he said, no, that's not what his name is going to be. His name's not going to be Benoni, the son of my sorrow, but it's going to be Benjamin, which is the son of my right hand. But see, I believe the same thing was taking place here with Jabez. I think maybe it was out of the pain that his mother had gone through. Something provoked them to label this man with this terrible name, Jabez. Sorrow bringer, pain maker. I mean, can you imagine being labeled with that throughout your life? How do you find a date? How do you find parents that are going to be so thrilled to see you? Oh, honey, I'm so thrilled. Pain maker's coming to dinner. Pain maker, sorrow bringer is dating our daughter. I mean, there ain't nothing good about that. But the fact is people label you many times. People respond to you. People do things to you out of their own pain. And what it does, it becomes boundaries for your life. For Jabez, it became a watermark for his life. It became the thing that labeled him. Everybody, he was known as, that's pain bringer, that's sorrow bringer. I mean, that literally becomes the identity. Now, a lot of you may say, well, how does that apply to me? Well, a lot of you have the feeling I'm just a loser. I can never make ends meet. No matter what I try, falls apart. I'm a terrible businessman. I'm a terrible husband. I'm a terrible wife. And we label ourselves, and those out of our perception or out of the perception of someone else. I've seen parents that have labeled their children as troublemakers and that you're not any good and that type thing. And literally it became boundaries that shape the identity of that child that they carried into their adulthood. and they're doing everything they can to succeed in life, but it seems like once they reach up to a certain point, then they end up falling back to that watermark that they believe about themselves. That's the way I've always been. That's the way my father was, my grandfather was. I've always been this way. I've always had these problems. And you know what I'm saying? And it gets to where it's a mindset that literally shapes us. This is what I am. We get labeled, and it becomes bars to us. It becomes a prison to us that we can't get out of. But Jabez prayed that prayer, and he reached a point of desperation in his life, and he prayed that prayer, "Oh Lord, that you would bless me indeed." And listen to what he said, "and enlarge my territory, enlarge who I am, enlarge the boundaries." There's another scripture that talks about it. He said, broaden the stakes of your tent. In other words, broaden the place of your habitation. That's what Jabez, enlarge my territory. I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want these limitations anymore. Enlarge me, help me that I don't become this person. He said, enlarge my territory, that your hand will be with me, that you keep me from evil. In other words, I don't want to be the type of a person who is constantly in trouble or constantly going through these very difficult times or very difficult seasons. Enlarge who I am. My opinion of myself has imprisoned me. We keep thinking, I could never do that. I could never be that. I could never make that much money. I could never have those kinds of friends. This is just all I am. This is all I'll ever be. I don't have the right education. I don't have the right culture. I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. All of those things become barriers that hold you in. I remember listening to one guy talk one time. He was born in Harlem. And there was a mindset that gripped that area, and it was one of struggle. It was one of poverty. It was a very difficult season and time. And he said, I truly was raised with a mindset, I will never get out of here. He said, I could have gone about 3 or 4 miles in any direction and got out of there. But he said, the thing, I felt like I was imprisoned in an area. And it wasn't just imprisoned in an area, a location. It was imprisoned in a mindset. But see, we all have that. I was raised in the south side of Oklahoma City. There wasn't a whole lot of hope that people had for me or for those that were like me, because this is the way we were born. This is the way we'll always be raised. When, quite frankly, it became bars that held us in and kept us captive. It reminds me of the story of a bear that was in this traveling circus. This was so many years ago, and of course we don't have traveling circuses nowadays, but it used to be the thing. I think that was their Netflix back in those days. That was their YouTube. That was the thing that they got to enjoy themselves because they didn't have what we have. So the traveling circus would come around, and they had different things. They had animals. They had people that were very unusual. Well, the story that I want to tell you about is that when they obtained this cub, this bear, when it was just a cub, and they put it in this cage and just traveled from town to town. And they never let the bear out. They kept the bear inside that cage for its entire life. Of course, it grew and grew, but it was a 12-foot cage. It was a big cage. And as the bear grew, it became restless, and it would just stride from one side to the other, and it became almost obsessed with this stride. It would take the march 12 foot this way, 12 foot this way. Animals really weren't designed to be caged like that. It's kind of like some of your pets. You have a dog that is just driving you crazy. The thing that the dog needs to do is to get out and run. It needs to get out. You need to get it out of its cage, get it out of its room. It was designed to be outside and to run. Well, this bear, he would go 12 foot this way, 12 foot this way. 12 foot this way, 12 foot this way. And month after month and year after year, that traveling circus went from town to town. And people were cruel to that bear. There were times whenever people would throw cigarettes or cigar butts in the path of that bear, trying to break its stride, but trying to burn its feet. But it would just go this way and this way. And one time, someone even fed the bear a hamburger that was laced with slivers of glass. And of course, the bear swallowed it and ate it and just bled down to its haunches. But he was a survivor, and he came back, kind of like many of you. You've been through things, you've been abused, you've been hurt, you've been mishandled, but you survived. You end up getting through it. And that's what happened to that bear until finally, after a number of years, the traveling circus closed. And they determined they couldn't travel anymore, so they were trying to do away with the animals. So they gave this bear over to a zoo in Heidelberg, Germany. Now, the Heidelberg, Germany, the zoo that was the Heidelberg Zoo, if you were an animal and you got to go to Heidelberg Zoo, you were one lucky animal. I mean, it was the thousands of acres. It was a huge resort. There were trees and water and fish and birds and bears, everything you could think of that was out there. And of course, a lot of people had begun to cry about the cruelty of how this bear was handled. And so there was a big push to get it taken to Heidelberg. Well, the press was there. Everyone was excited about getting that bear there to the Heidelberg Zoo. And when they got the cage, they dropped it onto the compound, and everybody thought, man, this is going to be so cool to see what it does. And they put this cage on the compound, and when they opened the door, to their surprise, the bear didn't even respond to it. It just went 12 foot this way, 12 foot this way, 12 foot this way, 12 foot that way. There's a 12-foot shuffle. That stride was just so predictable, and they'd never done anything else. And they tried to coax it out with food. They tried to scare it out. And finally, they got a fire and some smoke, and they smoked the bear actually out of the cage onto the compound. And for a few seconds, the bear was just disoriented and didn't know what to do. And to their amazement, what took place, the bear on the outside of the cage started going 12 foot this way, and 12 foot this way, 12 foot this way, and 12 foot this way. They realized that the bars on that animal was no longer on the outside, but he had been in that for so long that the bars were now on the inside. Wasn't on the outside. It wasn't something exterior. Of course, that's the same for your life. Fact is, the bars aren't on the outside for your life. The bars that you face are the ones on the inside. Let me just ask you something. What's the size of your life? What's the size of your cage? What defines you? You might say, well, here are my boundaries. What do you mean by that? Well, here's who I am. Here's who I think I am. Here's what I think I can do. I could never be more than that. Like I said, I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. I was born in a poor family. I was on, we just have our excuses, and all of those are bars. All of those things are boundaries for our life that we've accepted, and we've done the 12-foot shuffle within the boundaries of those limitations. But see, those limitations aren't real anymore. You are in the greatest country that has ever been on this planet. You have more opportunity than anyone could ever imagine. And not only that, there is a treasure in you that is just incredible. I mean, who you are and what you can do and what you can become. But yet you're held away from all of that by the boundaries, the walls, the label that people called you Benoni. People called you Jabez, and that became your boundaries. But I want to say this to you. There's more to you than what you're experiencing and what you're going through. You're more than you think you are. You can do more than you think you can do. And I think it comes to a point where you realize that. Once you realize that and once you see it, you'll have the courage to step beyond the boundaries of everything that has held you in captivity and fear for all of these years. And you're going to find there's a whole world of things that you've always desired but never dreamed you would ever get to partake of. So that's what Jabez did. He prayed, enlarge me. He called out to God. He said, enlarge me, God of covenants, enlarge me. Make my boundaries bigger. I don't want to be boxed in anymore. I don't want to be held to a $12 an hour job. I don't want to be held to a mindset of sickness or poverty or of loneliness. That's not who I am, and that's not what I want to become. And I'm telling you something, if you will allow yourself to look beyond the boundaries of what has always held you, if you'll allow yourself to look beyond the boundaries of your fear and your intimidation, you're going to find a world of great joy and of great pleasure and of fullness. And that's what I want to try to help you do. That's the reason I come to you every day. I want to come to you and I want to help expose you to a successful life because I believe it's in you. Well, that's what I've got for you today. And I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to ask that you please push like, push share, and push subscribe. I deeply appreciate you guys. I appreciate your friendship. I mean that. That's something that I value. Thank you. Thank you for being my friend. All right, that's what I've got. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. I want you guys to have a blessed day. God bless you. Bye-bye.